Hey there, I'm Muska and welcome to HitScan. Today we're going to be looking at 5 tips to ranking up, and if I put it like that, it already feels too simple. Really, competitive play in any shooter, and especially in something with as short of a time to kill as Valorant, there's obviously more to it than just 5 tips that will just instantly help you gain rating. Ranked play is really all about gradual improvement and making sure that you get the most out of every single game and find consistency in your play so you can apply those things you've learned and then consistently do well, keeping your win rate above 50% to rank up. That's it. The tips in this video will be addressing things that often get in the way for people to be able to apply those skills that they have. There's so many factors at play, all the different players, just how you're doing that day, how you're playing and how you're utilizing other tools that are not just your weapon and abilities in Valorant. So let's get started with 5 tips that will help you get more consistent results in ranked. First up, something we've been talking about before actually, which is focusing your agent pool. If you're spreading your knowledge a bit too thin, you'll be put at a disadvantage against most enemy players who may be spending their time on fewer agents. So I feel like properly learning 3 agents is the sweet spot here in my experience, but sometimes you're just gonna have to fill those gaps in the team's composition. If you want more consistency in ranked games though, you really need to pick those agents that you want to master and spend more time on all of those. Figure out which maps you are better on with which of those agents, where you're most useful on defense and on offense, and how you utilize your kit when you're attacking versus when you're defending. It's a pretty basic tip, but it's just so important. Just limit your agent pool so you don't spread your knowledge too thin, and you'll do better more often because you can eliminate slipping up, pressing the wrong ability, just not quite being sure how a projectile arches over a wall, or just accidentally killing yourself with some ability. That could happen too. This is an easy way to just instantly get better there. Tip number 2 is bait people into voice chat. Now, I put it like this because this is the way I do it, and I wanted to give you guys this tip that I've been using for a few years now, playing Rainbow Six Siege, Counter-Strike, Overwatch, and Valorant mostly. That's where I've been applying this the most part. When you get into a game initially and the queue pops and you get into that pick screen there and you have all of your teammates, it's not too uncommon to have someone say hi team or hello, and sometimes that does it, and that's great. However, there are those matches where people might not initially feel like talking, or at least not feel like getting into sort of small talk. And hey, that's okay. If you don't want to be in voice chat all the time, I understand. But we've all had those games occasionally where you just sit quietly with your team and you don't really talk that much until like 6 rounds in, where someone gets really frustrated and finally uses their push to talk button, but to vent frustration rather than to actually communicate something useful. This is where those initial hi team or just a simple hello don't get a response. They can be replaced with a "Can you guys hear me? Hello." Or just "Hello team, is my mic working? Hello. Is my microphone working? Hello." Just something like that. That gets those people that normally don't really talk at the start of the round to actually respond. Sometimes I've just said "hello team" like that in Counter-Strike and not really gotten much, and then just a little bit into that first pistol round then gone, "Oh hey, can you guys hear me?" And then you get 2 or 3 people responding at once saying that they can hear you, because really they just want you to be quiet and focus on the game. But at least you're bringing people into voice chat. It's a little bit exploitative in a way, but it does really help with getting people that have a microphone that normally would only talk when they get frustrated to start to communicate in another way. I found success with this in teams that aren't talking a lot, just bringing it back to things that are outside of game almost, so it's not just the usual callouts. You're gonna spend the next half an hour or more with these people, so you might as well get started with the talking ASAP. Next up, another type of baiting, but this time baiting out enemy utility. This is a very basic and generic tip, but it's something I feel like a lot of people miss out on doing in ranked, which can be quite easy to do, especially in lower ranks where people are very keen to use their abilities. Hell, sometimes not even in lower ranks, but just with particular players on particular characters. Sage slows are a great example of this, where if a Sage uses a slow early in a round or a wall early in a round, then those abilities could lose a lot of value since you have time to just wait them out as the attacking team. Baiting out a couple abilities early can be really useful by just shooting down angles where you think you're likely to get someone's attention but not get yourself killed. Maybe even using an ability yourself to bait enemies into using abilities as a response to that. There's a lot of different things you can do here. Just be creative and find those players as well that do tend to just use abilities a little bit more loosely so you can actually abuse that. I don't think this is very difficult to apply. It's just about remembering to apply it occasionally. And you can save yourself a lot of frustration from running into abilities early when in reality you could have just waited things out or baited out a little bit more, played a bit more mind games, I guess you could say. Speaking of getting frustrated and tilt and such though, the next tip is about not letting tilt become the communication focus. For this one, I'm just gonna run through 3 very quick do's and 3 even quicker don'ts. All in order for players that are tilting, do offer to swap position, not because they are struggling, but because you as a team are just struggling and need to try something new. It's important that if you offer them this, you don't sound like you're singling them out and targeting them, and instead just offering to switch something up. And maybe you've been wanting to try a new position yourself that round and you're noticing someone else struggling, you can kind of help them out and just have the whole team benefit. 2, if you have some extra credits, then let people know and tell them to request something if they need a weapon. These types of things really work and can save a game that could otherwise spiral out of control from just one tilted teammate. This is by far the most effective one in my experience as well in both Valorant and Counter-Strike, just giving a tilted player a weapon or helping them out with a buy of some sort, even if it's just them playing operator and then you offer to buy them a pistol as well because you've got some extra cash. That sort of thing can really make a difference in behavior there. And it's also just a nice gesture. And 3, for the last do, if someone is tilting at another teammate of yours, acknowledge it, but don't let it go further than that. So, for example, something like, that last push of ours was pretty messy, you're right, wanna try to push A with my Brimstone ultimate this round instead? So you don't get hung up on the tilting part or whatever went so wrong. Because if people get tilted, you're kind of past the point of being constructive about it, and you have to just work past it instead and push forward. Sometimes it can be fine to address team issues, but if people are already tilted, it's just not going to be a constructive conversation most of the time. And the 3 quick don'ts. Don't tell someone to be quiet. This just never works. Everyone knows what this is like in real life. If you're talking to someone, they are just telling you to be quiet because they feel like you're wrong. It doesn't work. It doesn't help you. You're sabotaging your own game there. 2, don't focus on pointing out who was responsible for the last round. Singling out teammates like this leads to more tilt, and like I said earlier, you don't want to target people like that and make them feel sort of accused for being the one that did something wrong. And finally, 3, don't tell other people how to play. Tell them about your intentions for that round and then ask for help with whatever your plan is, rather than just bullying someone into changing their playstyle or position. Now, if it's a simple bit of help such as, hey, just aim a little bit higher with your crosshair so you get him when he comes around this corner, that can be fine to throw in once or twice if you think that player needs it. That's not being negative, that's just criticism and constructive criticism to helping your mechanics and helping your play. But this goes too far so often where people try to tell the last player exactly what to do, just step by step, and it's just never gonna work. Yeah, if there's some super important bit of information and all, great. But you can't voice command guide them through this round. Hey Siri, clutch this round for me. They're just not gonna improve that much that game, and you're just gonna have to accept that some rounds are just gonna be lost. When you think maybe someone could have done something about it, just avoid that backseating behavior. It's something I've been struggling with previously too. Last on my full list of tips though, we have recognize when you're having a bad game and break the cycle. I put this one last because it's a little bit boring, but for those of you that made it this far, thank you so much for watching this much of the video. This is, in my experience, the best tip for just changing those games that seem like they're not going too well. And instead of getting 13-0'd, maybe at least you lose 13-7 or 13-8, so you lose less rating, or even better, you actually turn it around. This can go for any aspect of Valorant really, but I'm gonna use aim as my example here. We all have those days where we just keep shooting right next to that head hitbox, and you can kind of see just before you die how you hit right next to them and just about don't get those really crucial kills. If you recognize this so you can focus more on other aspects instead to try and make up for that, change up play, etc., maybe make some good calls for your team, then you can break out of those bad vibes and practice other things instead. Even when things are looking really bad, remember that any time you spend in Valorant is time you can use to learn something else, and sometimes when you start focusing on other factors instead, you'll find yourself improving no matter what. You'll find yourself improving no matter if you're having a good aim day or not. So let's say you're aiming poorly one match and you're trying to find ways to make up for that. Find more passive ways to respond to attackers. Instead of trying to take gunfights all the time, try to just go for a little bit of chip damage, fall back, use an ability. Aggressive plays that would require really good aim might not be something that you should look to do, at least that game or maybe that day. And when you can catch yourselves in these bad games and break that cycle, it can really do wonders for your play and your in-game rank because, well, you'll probably start losing less. Even when you lose with fewer rounds, and also turn around some games that you didn't think were possible to win. Okay, that was it. That was basically my best tips for ranked. They were all a little bit spread out and some of them had multiple points, I know. But I think that really represents ranked in most video games. It's not as simple as just queue up, pick your favorite character, click the head hitbox and you win. That's just not viable, at least long term, unless you're extremely skilled at the game. And for the most part, even if you have a lot of skills and you're actually really talented and play really well, being able to do that consistently is very important for actually ranking up, so you don't burn yourself out on massive loss streaks and that sort of thing. If you have a friend who you think needs any of these tips, then do shoot them this video. I'm sure they would appreciate it. There's timestamps in the description, and they should also appear on the YouTube timeline, so you can skip to the particular ones. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it was useful and enjoyable, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.